Renars podcast.
Here you go. That's all we want to say.
This is a tune, right? This is a track.
That's
what I'm talking about.
I was saying to Dylan, listen, like, what is going to be, if you would be a fighter, what would be your track? And he said this would be the track. Well, here you go. We have Dylan Werner in a house. How are you, buddy?
I'm good.
This is like the most bizarre opening to any podcast. But here I met Dylan last year on in a skate park in a place called Amplitude. I think that's the first time I saw you.
No, I think the first time was at the trampoline park.
Yes.
Trampoline park, and then you're like, oh, you skate because I was skating with Dom.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, I skate, meet you at, and then I saw you at Amplitude.
Yeah,
but I think we hung out more at the trampoline park.
It could be before I definitely didn't see you in Nirvana, I think. But yeah, because I remember you tried to do that move. You didn't try. You actually succeeded. When you do really grab your back of your feet and push your...
the rodeo.
Yeah, the rodeo. Yeah. I thought it was something cowboy themed.
Yeah,
and I thought
because our buddy Gary introduced us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Matchmaker Gary is what I like to call him.
Let's shout out for Gary, and Gary actually did podcast. Probably he's like 5th or 6th guest.
Shout out Uncle Gary.
Woo! He's now in Ubud enjoying the peace and tranquility.
All your listeners really don't care.
Not even Ubud, actually. It's Uluwatu, but no one cares. Yeah,
no one cares.
Anyways,
let's talk about some more stuff that no one cares about.
Yeah, so that's my podcast, basically.
Right. Easy. That's easy for me. I'm usually talking about things that people care about that are all deep and philosophical. This is a nice twist.
There you go. That's actually. I just gonna be honest with you. I checked out a couple of the podcasts you've done before, and I feel a little bit intimidated. It's like, this guy is gonna be on my podcast now, and which is great. I mean, you said yes, and
persistence.
Exactly. How many times I was like, Dylan, could you come on my podcast, please? And he's like, oh my God, this guy again.
No, I enjoy doing. I've done a lot of podcasts. It's one of those things that I say yes to more than most things because it's always nice to kind of step out in front of a different audience, because my audience tends to be really niche. It's the yoga, mindfulness, or calisthenics. It's like really just those types of people, and most of what I talk about on that, it has to do with like either yoga or anatomy or breathing. So it's kind of refreshing to be on a different type of podcast.
Perfect. And that's really great, because I was like thinking, what could we talk about? And one of the things what I definitely would like to chat with you, and I didn't really see people actually talking to you about, is skydiving, because you've done skydiving in the past. How many jumps have you done?
A lot, but it's been, I would feel like a bit of an imposter if I actually were to talk about skydiving, because I stopped skydiving right about on the time when I really started getting serious into yoga. But I mean, it's an interesting story why I started skydiving and why I stopped skydiving. Not that I necessarily quit skydiving. I just kind of stopped doing it. I stopped doing it not very long after I started doing it. So maybe like a year. I think I was skydiving for about a year, pretty much only at Paris, California, which is like kind of a big skydiving place. It's where I got certified. And I would just go every week and try to do 5 to 10 jumps on the weekend. Do like as many times as I could get on the plane. If I was just there for one day, I'd probably do like 5 jumps, and if I was there for 2 days, I'd do 10, just if I had the time. But I really enjoyed it, and I think there's a lot of things going on. Are we ready for long stories? I think
we're ready for long stories.
Are we already getting into that?
Yeah. I just also want to, if you could start with, how did you get into skydiving? What happened? What was that, something you wanted to do, and just like...
So I got into skydiving when I was about 28 years old. I started practicing yoga when I was 20, but I started practicing yoga and martial arts, and it was a very different intention. Probably a similar reason to why most people go to yoga, which is to get more flexible. And so that's kind of what I was going to yoga. And I didn't really start going to yoga again. Like, I did that for a number of years, and then I kind of drifted away from it and got into rock climbing really, really heavy. I'd always rock climbed. I started, forever, eternity. And I started rock climbing when I was about 13 or 14 years old. And then I got really serious about rock climbing when I was about 25 years old, where I was training 4 to 5 days a week, more if I could,
Right.
and climbing for like 3 to 4 hours a day. So really serious about it. And then kind of wanted to get back into yoga. One, just to kind of expand my social life, because I just felt like I lived at the climbing gym and I wanted to meet some more people. So I started taking yoga classes again because I remember I enjoyed it when I was doing martial arts. Around that same time, so a little bit before that, I had started skydiving. And I think I was also extremely unhappy in my life.
Right.
And I was going through this thing that I see a lot of people like in their late 20s, early 30s go through. You know, I'm 42 now, so when I see people, you know, we tend to take the same paths often, like all people, because life offers the same type of challenges. And though they may look different, we still perceive them pretty much the same, and it's still the same internal struggles. It's still the, you know, story of humanity, a story of growing and trying to discover yourself. So even though the stories are different, they basically all share like a similar common thread. So I was really unhappy. Didn't know I was unhappy, but I knew that something was missing in my life that made me feel a little bit hollow or shallow or just in search of a greater need. I was playing in a rock band that I played in rock bands most of my life. Again, not all of my life, but I started playing in a rock band when I was like 13 years old. And whenever I'm back home in California, I still play with the same guys. Like
nice.
we haven't officially broke up, but we still like to get together.
That's crazy because you see, I start seeing so many things what we done to get. Like I played guitar for a while. I played in a band. So start doing skydiving because I felt like something is missing. I've done rock climbing, you know, for stunts, but even without stunts, I did a lot of it. So you know, there's so many similarities, and it's interesting to hear your story, how you got it and why you did it. And I could feel the same, like very similar why I did skydiving, because I was like, I just turned 30 and I thought I need something, I don't know, different, something crazy, something I never tried. And then there was some kind of void I was filling up pretty much.
Yeah, I think that late 20s, you just start going after those cool points. Like, how do I become more cool?
Yeah.
So I had a sports car, I had a blonde girlfriend, I was a firefighter, paramedic. And so it just kind of made sense also to start skydiving. And I'd done martial arts and I'd done wrestling. I'd wrestled my life, like most of my life as well. These are kind of things that I've always done.
Yeah.
So it was just like I kept going after these things because I thought, you know, if I just add on more stuff, bought a house, that something would fulfill me. Something would make me feel more complete. And so when I started when I started skydiving, it did something. It made me feel like something I couldn't describe, but it seemed to fill that hole. And so that's why I was jumping so much in the beginning. I like, as fast as I could, I got my license so I could just go and for cheap and do as many jumps on the weekend as I could. So that's what I did. I would just always go, and that was like pretty much my free time was jumping out of a plane. And then around that same time, or after about maybe a year into jumping, I started getting into yoga a bit more. And also at the same time that I started getting into yoga, I was feeling that what I was getting from skydiving was kind of fading away, like it was losing the luster, and it wasn't really doing what it needed to do. And it took me actually probably like a year or 2 years into practicing a more of a spiritual yoga that I figured out what I was getting from skydiving that quickly faded away, and why I was being more attracted by something that was so slow and soft like yoga, but it was still fulfilling that same thing. And it was I just had this huge hole and addiction, and the addiction first was for me to be anywhere other than here. That was my addiction. I would always gravitate to either like living in my past because it was so cool and fun, or living in my future because like it's going to be better. And the hole that I had was just being present with myself. Who am I now? And why do I avoid this so much? And then one of the things that skydiving does, and like a lot of extreme stuff, and you're someone that goes after the extreme, is it makes you be present. And it forces you to do it without the intention. But like anything that you do often, like it starts to fade away. And skydiving started that thing that I got from the beginning started to become mundane.
Yeah.
Right? Skydiving it's it's like the first time you go scuba diving, it's really cool. You know,
Yeah,
you're like, I'm underwater, I'm looking at all these fishes, I'm breathing. I still scuba dive a lot, but for me, it's like going on a boat tour. You know, you're just like looking at things. It doesn't have that anymore, and so you lose that thing that brought the extreme, and it just becomes, you know, something else that you do. But the difference with yoga, the only difference, and it's not necessarily indicative of yoga or some like a property of just yoga, but that intention to be present. And it's funny because it's such a silly thing, or I look at it now after practicing yoga now for how many years that I've been doing it. I mean, really since I was 20, but seriously since I was 29. So I guess like 13 years now. So I look at it as it was a silly thing, but back then it was something that was completely novel. Yeah, and it was so weird that once I started to feel present, like I started to understand who I was, not who I wanted to be. And that was a huge shift in my life, that I stopped chasing after something, because whenever you're chasing after something, you're always thinking that your happiness lives in that thing that you're chasing after. And then by acquiring it, that it'll fulfill whatever that thing is in you that's missing. But being present teaches you that there's nothing in you that's missing. Now, I came from like a Judeo-Christian background.
So what is Judeo-Christian?
Just like religious, Christian. I threw some stank on that, Christian.
No, I'm just wondering what Judeo means.
Judeo is
nothing
Judaism.
To do with Jewish. Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Judeo-Christian means like that kind of, you could even say like Islam, Judaism, Christianity. Basically all these religions, and I'm not saying anything bad about religion or whatever, but it has this underlying tone that you are born a sinner.
Yeah.
Basically, you're born missing something, and you need something to fulfill yourself in that. In those religions is God or Jesus or Muhammad or whatever it is. You know, I don't believe in anything anymore. I feel pretty good about it, but but that
I'm joining you with that one.
but I still have these remnants of this kind of upbringing that I wasn't good enough. And you're born that way.
Yeah.
Like you're born not good enough. You need Jesus in your life so that you're good enough. And whether you do or not, that's beside the point. But what I started to understand was that I was born whole. I was born with everything that I needed, and nothing that I could get would make me more me, and nothing I could get rid of would make me less me. Because everything that was me was already me. Of course, I'll change and grow and all that, but it's like a seed. You know, you plant a seed, it starts out as one thing and it grows into a huge oak, but it does that by just evolving within itself. It doesn't get rid of anything, it doesn't add anything. And it's everything that makes an oak tree was there when it was a seed. And so I started to think of myself in that way, that I didn't need to get anything, but I'll still grow, I'll still evolve. And as I do through each one of those steps and processes, I could be completely content and happy.
Yeah.
And so it changed. Well, one, I was unhappy before, and I'm happy now. And that's a huge thing. And I think there's so many people that are unhappy, and they're looking for that thing that will make them happy when that thing is always inside of them. It's just, how do you see life? We have two different ways of viewing reality, through our perception and our perspective. Our perception is what we see, and basically, how do I translate what happens to me? Is that good or bad? Good and bad don't exist, right? They're just judgments placed upon situations.
Yeah.
So here's a situation, I view it as good or I view it as bad, and that in turn contributes to my happiness. I'm in a good situation, I'm in a bad situation.
Yeah, and the best part of it is like, what is good without bad, or what is bad without good?
Right.
You know, all that kind of stuff.
That's why heaven doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. And stop what you were saying. I just want to come a little bit back about.
Right. No one needs to know about the second thing. They're like, fuck, just tell us the second one.
Give me a second. Just I wanted to, because you say so many cool things, and I kind of like want to expand on them, and I just
haven't
move
said
on.
anything cool. No. Don't get confused.
Wait.
Hey.
About how we have that feeling of that we not deserve something in our lives. So I can again relate to this because I grew up in a household where Eastern Europeans are very famous with that. We don't really show love to each other. We don't really appreciate each other's kind of work or kind of like performance. And I remember so I started martial arts when I was 15. I did karate for about 7 years, and for the last 4 years I was in Latvian team. I was presenting Latvia in like Europe and European championships. And I remember I would come home and I would be telling my dad, "Oh, here you go, I'm second in Europe." And my dad just looks at me like, "Well, so what do you want me to do about it?" I was like,
"Why aren't you first?"
That would be America.
To me when you're not a loser.
That would be American way. But yeah, my dad is like, "So what do you want from me?" I was like, I didn't even know what to say.
I want you to be first, all right? Second.
But what he said to me, he was
bragging?
He said, all of these things what you don't do for me, for mom, for my wife or your mother, but you do for yourself. And as sooner you understand that, as easier it's going to be to live in your And I was like, in the same time, I was stupefied. I was a little bit upset, but I was like, fuck, that makes total sense. Mm-hmm. And since then, I also growing up and then meeting, moving to Canada, 13, 14 years ago, seeing how parents are and this is the cuddling culture. It was a big thing in the States, all over the world, but Americans talk about that a lot, and that kids are just you get this trophy, that trophy, just participation, and etc. Then I was really struggling with why would we appreciate someone's mediocre performance?
Second.
You're not gonna let that go, are you?
Just second in the world, still second. Yeah, I mean it's you actually moved right into the second point. Perception is one. The other one is perspective.
Yeah,
perspective is how do we see things. If you stand right up close to something, you can only see what's right there. That's everything that you understand. If you back up, you can see more of the picture. And so as much as you see how you judge it as good or bad, from where do you see it from? And the more that you step outside of yourself, the farther back that you go, the more that you could actually see what's going on. And actually the more that you remove yourself, the more you actually see what is true.
Yeah.
Because the more that you're inside yourself in this subjective experience, the more you see things as everything's happening around you rather than everything is happening.
Is it similar to saying widening horizons? When people say travel, meet other people, widen your horizons, understand that you're not this amazing special one in a little town somewhere in the countryside, but then actually when you look at the bigger picture, you're just a tiny speck and you're not.
I definitely think traveling does help put you more in your place, and it does open up your horizon or your perspective a bit to understand different cultures, different people, that not everything is, small middle town America or what, whatever it is, the situation that you grew up. But even more than that is to remove yourself. So the more that you could remove yourself from it, because whatever you see is always going to have a layer, a filter in front of it. And that filter is your history, how you've learned everything, your experience, and your emotions.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly digesting the world around you through these filters. And these filters are unique to you, no one else. No one else gets to see these filters. And so you're absorbing what you think truth is, but it's really only your truth.
Yeah.
And so the more that you're able to step back and kind of remove your emotions from it, remove your perception or your perception of it being good or bad, or the judgments that you place upon it, the more that you could actually see it for what it is, and the closer to the truth you are. And living close to the truth is important because you're able to actually understand other people's truth better. You're able to make better relationships with other people. You're able to make a better relationship with yourself. And it's how you act, interact, react to the world and your environment around you is all based off of how you're taking it in and how you're choosing to take it in. And so you could have it as you're doing it for yourself or you're doing it for your others. That doesn't really matter because both of those things revolve around you. And I don't think there's anything wrong with doing something for somebody else. It makes the world better. If you're doing everything for yourself, Alan Watts It's amazing. If you guys don't know Alan Watts, whatever, he died. but it's just one of my favorite philosophers. And he said there's two things that everyone should contemplate. The first one is your death, and the second one is everything that you do is selfish. And I've been really thinking a lot about this second one, that everything that you do is selfish. And more of not trying to argue that everything that you do is selfish versus altruistic, because you could argue both and you could come up with good points with both. But instead of like trying to prove something not to be selfish, when you actually look at everything that you do and see, how do I do this and how is it selfish? And what are the selfish parts into it? And how do I make this more selfish? Because it's what you do is one thing. Why you do something changes greatly what you do. And so you could take something what people might say that is completely unselfish, like raising a child, right? You could the love that a mother or father, whatever, has for the children, what they want for their children is just everything the best for them, which I agree is the case for most things. But how can that be completely selfish? And this is an important thing, because if you look at it like that, it allows you to remove the selfishness from it. So if you could take, I have some Asian friends. I'm not speaking for all Asians, but I'm speaking for the Asians that agree. Asians that agree with this, I'm talking to you. If you disagree with this, then just whatever. But from what I know from Asian culture, being an Asian American myself.
Are you?
No, I'm not. But it would give me credibility.
You're talking to Eastern European who saw his black first person when I was 18. So I don't know much.
Yeah, diversity.
Yeah.
But it's quite normal in an Asian family for the parents to be very strict for their child to get good grades. They go. I've dated a few different Asian women, and they tell me about their upbringing and going to like Japanese school on Saturdays and stuff. And most Asians play an instrument as well, because their parents made them play it at an early age. And you can think of that as, well, that's an amazing thing because they want the best for their child. But are they doing it because they want the best for their child? And from what I understand is many of them don't. It's more about what their friends and family think. And it's like, how good are they as a parent? And the child is a reflection of their parenting. And so even though all the things that they're having their kid do is beneficial, getting good grades, getting them into a good college, a good job, giving them all these skills for life, they're all done from a selfish place. And so the child grows up resenting all these things, because even though the action was good, the intention behind it was selfish. And that's like applied to everything that you do, just going to dinner with your friends or buying a gift or whatever it is. If you look at it and go like, well, how is this selfish? Like how am I doing this for the benefit of me? Yeah. And then that allows you to change your intention and gives you a chance to remove that selfishness from that. And so you could approach the situation from an altruistic way. And it's really quite powerful, and especially with big decisions that you make, like if you have any change, like a new job, a move to a new country or a new city or anything that has to do with your family, you ask, okay, well, how is this selfish? I'm not saying that it is selfish. You just have to ask yourself, how could it be selfish? And yeah. So I think doing things for other people is one of the best things that you can do. I mean, it is great to do things for yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being selfish. At the end of the day, like, most people aren't going to do things for you that are in your best interest or in your wants. And so that has to be part of it. You need to do things for yourself.
And for everyone, it's a different, the prism of how they look is, what are their values, At the end of the day, what makes me happy and what are my values and what are things I'm following. If for me, it's very important that I want to help as many people as I can, then it works for you. If for someone else, it's just like, I just want to think about my family, myself, and that's my happiness, and those are my values, then that's how it works, I guess. One of the most unselfish things I could think of, if you ride on your bike, and here in Bali we have a lot of cases, you ride on your bike and someone broke down on their bike, if you jump off your bike, put it and help that person to push it somewhere, I think that could be probably one of the most unselfish things ever. There's you're never gonna, it's like, there's nothing you're gonna gain out of it in that kind of sense. No one is gonna see you, oh, look at Renars, or look at you, like, you did this amazing thing. It's like, you know, especially if it's somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and then the person looks at you and thanks you, and then you have that amazing feeling, and then
That's
you can
the
say that selfish part,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But then that's pretty much, there's no not selfish things. I don't know.
The point of the exercise is not to say things are not selfish.
Okay.
It's not about that. It's only about seeing what could be selfish.
Right.
And then once you could see what could be selfish, then you could, maybe make better choices.
This is too complicated for me.
Yeah, this is why so that's how I started skydiving.
How did we end up here from skydiving? So I want to share with some of my stuff for skydiving. I just thought, like, and what you said, that it can be very thrilling, very cool for first maybe 20 jumps, 30 jumps, and then you notice, I remember I would fall asleep on a plane, and we have these Spanish skydivers, like big gigglers, and they knew that I'm a stunt guy, so they thought they could abuse me, whatever. I literally woke up once, I was like, just fell out of the plane, and I woke up and was like, oh shit. Well, I had 1 minute to fall still before I pull, but that's how the jokes they were doing. And it's like, you get to the point where it kind of gets boring. For me, like, one of the biggest, I won't say problems, but things is I get bored very quick. You know, I started doing horse riding, trick riding in Spain, and my 5th lesson was I was already learning how to stand on 2 horses and do balancing, whatever. But usually horse riding takes like 3-4 years before you get to that level. But because the crazy Spanish guy, he was, oh, Renars, you okay to do this? And I'm like, yeah, well, we'll see. If I break a leg, then, you know.
One of my teachers told me that boredom is us wanting it to be different than what it is. Because boredom is a really fascinating thing. So I've done a few vision quests, which like you call them vision quests, call them nature solo times. Basically times where I spent alone in nature for an extended period of time, not about trying to survive, just about trying to be. And so you spend most of the time alone, naked, meditating.
Do you have to be naked?
Yes.
Okay.
You don't have to be. I mean, you have to do anything. Okay.
Sorry.
But the reason why you're naked is for 2 reasons. One is it strips a bit of who you think you are, right? We put on our cool hats and our clothes and our sleeveless things, and I can't take off my tattoos, but you know, you do a lot of what you wear. There's a bit of your identity into it, and also everything that you wear is made by someone else, unless you make your own clothes. But yeah. It's not made by nature.
Can you put a little leaf in front, like a Mowgli?
Yeah, who are you hiding from? You're by yourself. You're alone. It's just you, you know. So the other reason why you're naked is to be closer to nature. So you feel more, like the sensations on your skin. Like when you feel a breeze, you feel it across your whole body rather than just where you're used to. But in those situations, the hardest thing by far is boredom. You know, if anybody's ever done a Vipassana, it's kind of similar to that, but on like you talk about extremes, doing an extreme thing, go sit alone, naked in Sweden for a week or 2, butt naked with just like a tent and a little bit of food, and then just sit out on a rock all day and experience your emotions.
You've done it once? How many times have you done this?
I've done 2 long ones and a lot of short ones. It's something I actually do with my students. We do a 24-hour one every year. So I do that with my 300-hour students, and that's just kind of more of an exercise to open the door in a sense. But yeah, when I was preparing for my first one I did was in Sweden. The second one I did was in Colorado. But when I was preparing for it, my teacher said is boredom is you thinking that this should be different than what it is. And that's like such a chronic problem with most people now. We get in any situation where, you know, you have to like actually start being with yourself or thinking or your thoughts or something's not immediately grabbing your attention, then it's on the phone or swiping or TV or video games, or which all those things are fine. There's nothing wrong with them, but we immediately want to change the situation as soon as boredom comes in. And it's like one of those things that if you want to talk about extreme, practice boredom. Like nothing else will challenge you more than that, especially because I think you and I are, you're a bit more extreme than me, but I think that's because I've been in this yoga thing for a while, but we're definitely cut from the same cloth. And the only thing that's ever challenged me is boredom.
When do you think that started, and who started practicing and noticing that there's this amazing benefit, and what is the main benefit for people to be by themselves in longer period of time, and then they have this boredom or whatever with their thoughts? What are the greatest benefits?
The purpose is not to be bored. The boredom actually goes away once you stop resisting. There's, I think like the first, it's a journey. There's a lot of different steps that you go through. The struggle with yourself. First of all, the fact that there is a struggle when there shouldn't be. That was like one of the first questions I asked. Like, I have this great life. I do all these amazing things. Why did I put myself in this struggle? And I felt like it was the worst thing in the world, but really all I was doing was sitting alone in nature. Like, how is that so bad? Just everything that is you think is wrong with you comes up. It's very, it's weird. It's confrontational in a way that doesn't make any sense, because no one's confronting you except for yourself. And so all these things come up, and it actually allows you time to work through them, to see them, to address them honestly, if you choose to. Just like jumping out of a plane or doing yoga, can take you to the same place. The intention is what matters, right? You have a car. The car is a vehicle, bring you wherever you want to go. But if you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter, if you get in it or not. Yeah. You always have to have that intention. You always have to understand, where am I going? And so the tools to get you there can be different. And even the tools you might use the same tool to get to a different place as well. So for me, sitting alone was more about trying to uncover these things that, trying to uncover what I was culturally conditioned to, the choices that I made that weren't mine. And that's something I think a lot of us don't realize. I feel like most people don't realize that we make a lot of choices and decisions, big ones, that we think are our own choices, but really they were given to us by our parents, by our culture, by society, by TV, by whatever, who we like, that's gay or that's stupid or that, whatever it is, like, those aren't your thoughts. I don't like this type of person. That's not your thought. Unless you had like a specific reason not to like that person, which probably came from something that wasn't yours in the first place. You already didn't like that person before you decided you didn't like that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then what you said, sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to add as well, like, I grew up in a small town, and when I was 18, I had no idea what I want to study, like continue university. And in Latvia, we were straight away, next one, university, not like in States or UK. They all 1 year travel, explore, go straight away university, graduate that, get a good job and all that. And we were so pushed to do those things very quick. And I graduated high school, I had no idea what I'm going to do. And I went to study business just because my sister was already studying there. And when I said to my mom, because my mom, she's a journalist. And I was like, journalism could be my thing. And she's like, no, son, you need something serious in your life. And then years only later, she would be saying like, no, son, I just want you to do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy. And then I was like, where were you when I was 18 and 19? But she's like, I was just concerned that, what if you're not going to make living? And, I didn't want you to struggle like I struggled as a journalist. And, and that came from different intention. But totally agree with you say, like, whether there's parents, but mainly in my case, it was society. It was like, you see, everyone would say, like, study business, be a lawyer, that makes you money. And the money was, those days, that's all you needed to be happy. No one talked about, what you actually want to do. So, I wanted to touch a little bit about your firefighter's career.
Oh, just really digging into the past here.
Well, let's talk about future.
Future.
No, the only reason why I wanted to say it because you would be really pissed off with me because I would be the guy who sets himself on fire. So I've done 3 films now where I'm fully on fire, and we usually would have
hot.
firefighters on a set.
It's pretty hot.
Totally opposite. It's cold.
No, it's sexy.
It's like what? Oh, hot, sexy. Okay.
Yeah.
Because we put these nomics layers, two layers with gel. You know how? Have you ever talked to someone who set themselves on fire and stuff?
I mean, maybe you're the first person I've talked to that's set themselves on fire, but I'm aware of how it goes down.
There you go. So you would be the guy who would be chasing me with a thing.
Probably not, because I put out houses, not people. I mean, I never if a person was on fire, I would have put him out, but I've never had to.
And then someone was like, that's Renars. Like, no, fuck it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Firefighter. I still have nightmares that I'm a firefighter, which is kind of weird.
For a long time, man. Like, you've seen a lot of crazy stuff.
It's not like the bad things that it's not about the bad things that I saw as a firefighter. It's more of like having to go. Being a firefighter is pretty boring. If we talk about boring, like it's a lot of like when you get a call, it could be exciting, but just like jumping out of a plane, it eventually loses its luster. The same thing with being a firefighter. You know, when you run on like so many different full arrests, which is someone having a heart attack, not breathing, their heart's not like the first couple are exciting, but after you do 100 or 500 of them, whatever, it's really just going through the steps. You give the drugs, you maybe shock them, you do the chest compressions, you write a report,
And then you would have quite long periods of then no action whatsoever.
Depends on the department. My department was pretty busy. And I mean, we would get exciting calls, but mostly what I fear is going back to like, it was such a toxic environment. The people that I worked with, every single one of them just wanted to retire. I had a hard time with that. It seemed to be very backstabby. Everyone, the way that you work in the fire department is, there's like one job, like, that you want is captain, and then there's the engineer, and then there's 2 firefighters. And so the tree already starts like this, and then it gets really narrow. So you're immediately in competition. The firefighters all in competition with each other to become an engineer. The engineers are all in competition with each other to become a captain. Yeah. Captains are all in competition with each other to become a chief. And then if you're like the fire chief, then, So there's always a diminishing amount of jobs, and you pretty much keep that job until you get promoted or retire. And so if you come in and you're someone that does well, people don't like that. And so if you're a new guy, and I was in the military before that, and I was crash fire rescue, which is like an aircraft firefighter. And so I'd already had all the schooling and classes and certificates and 4 years of experience. And then I'm coming into a municipal city department, and I have all these classes that they want me to take. I have these, already a lot of experience, and I'm going for that next step, and they don't like that because I'm the new guy. I shouldn't be going for that for like another 4 years or whatever it is. And so it tends to be very kind of backstabby.
Why did you not go somewhere where there's more higher level firefighter stuff? Because you come, like, how many years you were in military doing?
It doesn't matter. Every department is the same. The only thing that changes is the amount of fire stations there might be. And I could have gone to a bigger fire department like LA City or something like that. But there's more opportunity in a bigger city. I was a small city, only 3 stations. And I'm, I'm really glad. So I first got laid off, and then I got fired, which is, it's really interesting to lose interesting. That's a non-word. Doesn't mean anything. It's interesting. It's not interesting. It's rare, unique to lose the same job twice over 2 different circumstances. So I'd been a firefighter for like 4 years. I was a paramedic for 4 years before that, worked in a hospital for 2 years before that. So I had some time in the medical field. And then when I got hired on as a firefighter paramedic, I got first laid off because of budget. So it was the time when California was doing these massive layoffs to firefighters and police and city hall. And so I was laid off in that. And then 2 months later, I got offered my job back. So I came back, but when I came back, I was put on probation again. Firefighters have to go through a year of probation, and then after that, you're in the union, which means you're like protected. And then, so when I came back, part of the rules is I had to be on probation again for another 6 months. And I got sent to another captain who was a real dick. He was on his way out, basically close to retiring, and he wanted to treat me like I was a brand new first year, like rookie, probie. And he wanted me to do the dumb probie stuff, wake up, be the first one up to empty the dishwasher and clean the toilets, go out, practice putting on your bunker gear and throwing ladders and all like the busy BS work that they make new firefighters. But I'd been at this department for 4 years, and he wanted to treat me like I was day one. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. That
sounds like a proper dick.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm just going to do my job like I know how to do my job. Don't treat me like shit, you know? So at the end of that 6 months, I thought, okay, I did everything I was supposed to do, pass on my test. And then I got called in by the chiefs, not even my captain. Then they're like, you're not a good fit for this department, so we're going to let you go. So first time I was laid off. The second time I was properly fired. And I was devastated. But I think I was sad because it wasn't my choice. Because I honestly, if I think back about it, I hated that job. I hated going to work. I dreaded it. I remember I would keep a bar of chocolate in my locker, so that at the end of the day, I would reward myself by eating chocolate. And it was like my coping mechanism. Like literally, I was having to do things to self-soothe because it was the work environment was just so negative. But I would tell myself all these things. And, I have family that are firefighters, friends that are firefighters. They have a totally different experience. So clearly it's not about being a firefighter, but it was about my perception, right? So, and, it takes time away from that to understand. And also, who you work with is half of the job. And I just happen to work with a bunch of dickheads. There's some cool guys in there. There's some really cool guys. But I just kept getting stuck with these assholes. I had one of my partners, I couldn't stand the guy, but my last partner, the one I got fired with, he's a really cool dude. But yeah, so I wanted to be let go on my own terms. But it was probably like the best thing that ever happened to me. By far the best thing that ever happened to me. So like my nightmare, I'm a yoga teacher, right? After I left the fire department, I'm like, I was already teaching yoga for about 3 years at that time, because I started teaching yoga after my first year on the department, and I was just doing it like 1, 2, or 3 classes a week, depending on what I could fit into my schedule. And I loved it. But there's no money in it. Like I would save up my paycheck, and then after like 2 weeks, I'd have enough to go out and take my girlfriend to dinner. Right? So, I never thought about it being a viable career, but I had friends that were practicing in LA, and I was about an hour and a half outside of LA, that were making it work. And after I lost my job, I was like, I could make this work. I never thought I'd make any money out of it or become well known for it, but I knew that I could do it to survive at least. And so I just had this idea, like, I'm going to be a yoga teacher. And around that same time, I think I watched the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi. Have you ever seen that?
I heard of it.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. And basically it's just about this old dude that makes sushi, but it had this meaning, like it had this really deep meaning, which was like, doesn't matter what you do, like you could always be better at it. And life is not about being able to do everything, but it's about like trying to truly master your craft or your art, and to put yourself like 100% into something. And not that I say I believe this message or whatever, but that was kind of like the message of the movie, or at least what I took out of it.
And I think the biggest one in that is like, as long as that's what you want to do. That's the biggest one, because very often I see some very like talented people and they're great in what they do. One of the things what they're lacking is like to figure out how to make that as a viable business. Like someone is an artist, they make beautiful drawings, but they never could figure out how to sell them. So those are these things you need to figure out. Like, you become an amazing yoga teacher, but you're not going to be known if you're not going to travel, if you're not going to go to different countries, which you start doing. And that's where you got really recognized. And that's where your career so changed, right?
You are right. They are very two different things of making it a career and doing what you love. And to be honest, like, I didn't know if I was going to make it a career or not. I just knew that I was tired of doing what I didn't love doing, and I wanted to do what I did love doing, whether or not I could make money out of it. And I just had this intention, going back to the intention again, that I was going to do my best and give everything that I could to be the best at this. You know, I talked before about the promotion path of a firefighter. Well, it's very short. Firefighter, engineer, captain, battalion chief, it ends, right? So that's the top of the ceiling. You could get there after like 20 something years, and then that's it. Well, I looked at being a yoga teacher, and there was no ceiling. Even though you're like a yoga teacher, you know, I'm still a 500-hour yoga teacher as I was when I took my last 300-hour training or whatever. You know, it's like that. It's not marked off by titles, but yet my growth as a teacher has never stopped. And so I feel like, you know, it's like if you've ever been to California and been to like the Redwood Forest.
I've been to California, but never been to Redwood.
You see these trees that are just massive, and they just keep growing, and they keep growing. And that's kind of like what I feel like. I'll just continue to grow. Like, I started as a little seed, but I'm just going to continue to get bigger. And so that's actually how I made it as a well-known teacher, and was able to make this as like a successful career. Is my goal was just to be as good as I possibly could be. And so I put so much time. I mean, I still spend time studying, you know, like I still am learning more anatomy and working on creating and evolving and pushing my craft to be better. Like, I definitely don't feel like I have arrived, or that I'm even close to arriving. Like, I still feel like the journey is so much farther. And I don't know who they is, but they say, they say
buy a puppy.
Someone said this. Someone probably said this first, and then it's been repeated. But if you love the journey, you'll go farther than if you love the destination. And so, like, I don't have a destination. I just have a journey, and I'm enjoying it so far. So when I think about being a firefighter, it's just going back to that, like, being stuck.
That's another thing that I can relate to, because before I left Latvia, I was working in corporate industry. So I just got my MBA degree in business, and I was so...
Congratulations.
Oh, yay. Wait. Just now I can wipe my ass with that thing. My story goes that I was following really my sister's footsteps. Like, she's 5 years older, and anything she was doing, she was
Sounds
very
hot.
successful. I know. And I was just didn't had like idea what I want to do, and I just thought, like, this is because since I was a kid, I always wanted to kind of outwork my sister basically in anything what I was doing. There was like ballroom dancing, it was sports, anything. And then when I was in this corporate industry, and I was there for maybe 3-4 years, I'm surrounded by these people who hate their lives, just like you were saying about your fire department. They always complain, this is bad, that's bad. And I could not see my future that I could be that person, like that boss or whatever. I'm like, and then I was asking, my question was like, is this it? Is this my life? That's what I was asking. And around that time when I was asking that question, I had which I really want to ask you, what is your opinion about? I had this crazy gut feeling that my journey is not here. And then as soon as I started thinking that way, it was 2008, 2009 when the economy collapsed in
That's when I lost my job.
So that's pretty much, so 2000, I think it was end of 2008, 2009, I lost my business. I had a business with 2 other partners. I lost my job in this big corporation. I just got kind of finished all my studies, so there was nothing to do. And I broke up with my ex. So I literally had nothing, like kind of, and from nowhere, a friend of mine comes over saying, let's go to Canada. Let's do this youth mobility program. We can travel and work there. in combination with that gut feeling and everything, I was like, this is perfect. Let's just go. And then I went, and after 2 years, I would still come back to Latvia thinking, you know, I can still live here and this will be my life. But very quickly I realized this is not me. And then I went back to Canada, and now it's been over 12 years, and then I moved to UK. But so yeah, what I want to say, like, a very similar experience, like for me, was that gut feeling that something is not right. And also seeing I love when you use the word, you saw your ceiling. And there was actually, when I was hosting and emceeing parties and events, that was like my hobby, what I was doing on the side. And I said, if I stay in Latvia, there's no bigger events I can MC or host because the ceiling is this low. And I literally thought, if I want to get bigger, whatever, I need to travel, I need to learn the language, like English, which is my third language, and then I try there. And I'd rather be a small fish in a big pond, and with the opportunity that can eventually grow, instead of being big fish in a small pond where, you know, there's no real opportunities. So yeah, I would like to hear your opinion about gut feeling, or there's different way you call it, or what do you think that means?
I think whenever you go somewhere, you're either moving towards something or you're moving away from something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important question to ask yourself. Am I moving away from a situation? Am I moving towards one? So I take that with, like, I don't really, I mean, like, it's such a yogi thing to be like, oh, the universe told me, or like, which is fine. If the universe talks to you, like, that's great. It's, there definitely does seem to be like a flow when things are meant to be. But I think that it's so many different things more than just like your gut feeling. It's just like you're living your purpose, mm-hmm. and so you want to be behind it. And I think one of the things that people struggle with is like, what's my purpose in life?
Right.
And they feel like it's supposed to be handed to them by something divine or from the universe or whatever. But it's just, what do you love? Right? And then once you figure that out, which is, like I said, one of the hardest things to do, you just go with it. You could also say like your meaning, like, but yeah, I tend to more, rather than think about like, what is my gut telling me to do, I try to get a little bit more real with it. Like, what am I moving towards something, mm-hmm. Or am I trying to run away?
Yeah,
because the fire department, like I would have been running away from it, given the chance. Like, I was already starting other businesses and stuff, but the businesses that I started all failed because I wasn't moving towards the businesses. I was moving away from the fire department. But when the fire department gave me the old boot, then I had to move towards something. And I think that's why it worked to be a yoga teacher, because it was like, I just love doing it. There's something, it's being a teacher is a lot like being a performer, but with a lot more responsibility. Mm-hmm. It's like being a performer and a therapist and a life coach and all those things. And it's kind of crazy. All these different roles are placed on somebody that is, most people just have 200 hours worth of training. Mm-hmm.
And looking from all these years now later, what if that fire department, actually the environment, the people around you would be really cool, really supportive, and you would love to be there? So you would continue doing that for, do you have any idea how long you would be doing it?
No. What you don't know, you don't know.
Yeah.
So that was my plan, was to work at this department and then die. So I'm glad it didn't work out that way.
Listen, that's a perfect ending for the first half. Let's have a little stretch and come back in a minute.
All right.
Renars podcast.
How's Bali life treating you? How long you been here now?
It's a hard question to ask. I started coming to Bali, I think the first time was in 2012. I came here to teach a teacher training, and after the teacher training, I spent another month traveling around. Probably saw more of Bali in that 1 month than I have in like every trip I've been to like since. But since then, I've tried to come back to Bali for at least 1 or 2 months a year, and then once the pandemic hit, I spent the majority of it in London, And then as soon as I was able to find like a little window to come into Bali, I came here, and then I was here for most of the time, and then just left. So kind of since like 2020, I've been here.
Back and forth.
Yeah, from here and then traveling and teaching.
How different is Bali from Hawaii? Probably stupid question.
It's very different. Hawaii's America.
This is America, man.
Yeah, America.
So the nasi goreng is more expensive there?
Nasi goreng is much more expensive there. No, it's more like Spam, eggs, and rice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hawaii's cool. Hawaii's a vibe for sure. I like it there. It's expensive. It's organized. The only thing that's like similar is like the kind of the climate's a little bit similar, but I mean, what makes Bali is the people, I think.
Yeah.
And the traffic.
Yes, for traffic. Traffic has been amazing now.
Yeah, it's gotten busy. It was kind of a treat to be here during the pandemic when just everything was empty, but I think it's good for the island. I think eventually it'll settle down.
That's what I was saying. It was like back in the COVID days.
Yeah, the COVID days. People both hate and love the COVID days. You know, to get serious in here, is people just hate change. Like really, when
especially when it just happens, the moment of adapting, that's what they hate. And then when they adapted it, then they're like, oh, okay, it's not too bad.
As soon as it's familiar.
It's our nature, isn't it?
Yeah, and then change comes again. It's like people like hated COVID. Oh, I wanted it to be how it was. And then it's like how it was. Like, oh, it was so much better when there's COVID. It's like...
But also now we have to understand that one of the main reasons why it's getting so busy in Bali is because of what is going on with Russia and Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty much the main reason. And anywhere you go, like who I know have people who live stay in the guest houses, pretty much 90% are Russian speakers. So it's whether Russians or Ukrainians.
You speak Russian, right?
Yeah, that's my second language. Grew up in Latvia and post-Soviet Union product, basically.
So you're pro-Putin?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
That's on the record now.
What do you mean you're not denying? I watch a lot of political TV, and there's like I'm definitely liberal. Hate me, whatever. I don't know. But
what do the liberals do? What are they for? I don't even know. I'm
mostly like
politics.
I mean, now it's like politics are so divisive and so weird, and it's like, especially with like the whole MAGA Trump thing, it's like I actually never had problems with Republicans before, and I think most Republicans are fine, but now there's like this extremist group that's kind of come to light with the QAnons, and we've really gone like far from the beginning of this conversation to where we are now. Wow.
No, which is good. That's why it's podcast, right?
Yeah.
You just talk whatever.
I think we were talking about this a little bit, or maybe I was talking to someone else at Dawn Patrol.
That's, by the way, that's our cafe. We opened a cafe recently here in Bali. Come check it out in Dawn Patrol.
All my listeners that are in like Florida are going to be like,
check out Dawn Patrol. By the way, I looked it up. There's the what's that famous TripAdvisor, right? So I said to guys, "Oh, we need to get on TripAdvisor."
You need to get on Gojek.
Yeah, we're still organizing it. We are on a Grab now. Today was the first order for the Grab.
Because yesterday it was raining and I wanted some coffee. And I was going to order it off of Gojek.
You can order it from Grab because Gojek is just taking forever to...
For those that don't know, Gojek is Indonesian Grab or Indonesian, I don't know.
And for those who don't know what... that's Uber.
Uber
Foods.
Yeah. Uber Foods, Uber... Gojek is everything.
Especially in London. In London, it's all about Woot. Uber.
No, London also has Woot. I think Woot.
I don't know what that. I always used Uber.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Uber Eats. That's what it's. Uber Foods. Like, who's this moron?
Superfoods. Uber Foods.
Stupid.
Uber.
Hey, I just Gojek it.
Anyways, we just recently opened up with other two of my friends, Yanis and Dominic. People probably know Dominic Robson. He's a big deal in foods and stuff. And anyways, we opened a cafe recently, and so now we have takeaway. Yeah. And you said that you might talked about this and Dawn Patrol. What was that?
No, I was just saying people need to mind their own business. Like, stop. Like, let people be. I don't know. It just seems like there's so much divisiveness and people just wanting to control everybody else, and it's just like let people live a little bit, you know.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. Mind your own business.
Yeah, stop being Karen.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I do definitely approach things a lot with the yogi mindset. Like, if you just approach people with a bit more love and compassion and actually trying to see where they're coming from, you could have such a much better conversation. You could actually, like, meet eye to eye. Speaking of your partner, like Dom, who I love, one of my great friends, him and I definitely don't see eye to eye in the whole environmental thing. Like, I definitely believe in climate change and global warming, and it's a bad thing, and he's a climate change denier, which I don't understand, but I still love him. So, you know, and I think it's okay to have, like, different points of view. Not that one, but other points. No, I'm just kidding. He's a smart person, and he has his reasons for believing what he does, and I have my reasons for believing what I do. And to quote Chris Rock from Dogma, this is a sick movie. You know, he said that it's better to have ideas than beliefs. People kill each other over beliefs. Ideas you could change, you know? And so we put too much of our identity into the things that we think, right? Rather than it just being something that we think. And you know, most people are really passionate about certain things, and, you know, climate change, abortion, or whatever, religion, race, like, all these things are very passionate, and they are big deals and stuff, but you could still have intelligent conversations with and respect the other person. Exactly.
As long as we are open to listen to other people as well. You know, that's why, like, I'm a huge fan of Joe Rogan's, you know, and one of his main things is, like, even if I disagree with what you're saying and, like, totally disagree, I'm still here to hear you out and listen what you have to say. And then I can add something or my opinion about this or that. And that's the other beauty what we have, especially in Bali. Well, I don't know why I'm saying especially in Bali, but there's such a huge variety of people. So if that person disagrees you on so many levels, you don't even have to hang out with that person. You know, if you can't, like, actually be in one space and you have to argue all the time, you can find other people. So make that circle of people who you happy with. You know, go to Ubud and make that circle of people there. Ubud is a place where people do yoga only. Nothing else.
Ubud, I mean, I like Ubud. I was just there the other day for a photo shoot. It's beautiful. No, it's actually beautiful. It really is pretty. And I was saying, like, why I love Bali so much is the culture and the people. You know, like, I think Thailand is prettier for sure, and you can smoke weed in Thailand. So,
hey,
you can't do it here because you get murdered.
Yeah.
But not anything against the Thai people. I
thought against not anything against killing people, but yeah,
not anything against killing people. It's cool. No, not anything against, like, Thai people at all. But I tend to feel more invited and welcomed by Balinese. Like, when I go to Thailand, and I've taught in Thailand a few times, like, the yogis and stuff have been amazing and super accommodating and welcoming. You know, but just, like, the whole culture in general. There's just something very special about the Balinese.
One thing what I noticed in Thailand was as soon as you get to busy areas, that's where the local people are so different. They're more aggressive. They're more like, they basically get accustomed to the tourists, you know, and if the tourists treat them, you know, badly, that's how they're eventually gonna shoot back, kind of thing. And I remember I went to Krabi, and this was literally in one day. I went to this one place to get food in Krabi, which is quite central, and I was just treated like, fast, come here, like, what are you looking for? Why are you ordering this or this? Like really aggressive. But then literally 20 minutes on a scooter, just get outside of Krabi, and I went to the most peaceful and lovely people with a smile and all that. So, but also the other thing, Thailand has their tourism way longer than it's been in Bali, as far as I understand. And they're more accustomed to how to deal with tourists, and very often they're nasty tourists who go there, you know, so
yeah,
that could be the case. And now they have weed, so now they can calm down. That's going to make it much better.
Yeah. Go Thailand.
Yay.
It's time to move.
I heard in Bangkok they literally have like a little shop around every corner. So it's like, and you can try all sorts of types, and it's like for free and stuff.
Wow.
That's definitely like the Amsterdam of Asia now.
Yeah. America's just New York and California I've been to, like, lately since weed's been legalized.
How many states weed is illegal now in the States?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
It's like, is it like half of that at least, or less than half?
The good ones, it is.
What, the
So
good,
if
the good
you're-
weed or the good states?
The good states, all the good states.
Are there any good states though?
Yeah, I say California and New York are good states. Oregon, Washington, like I tend to like those places.
Yeah, California is the only place where I stayed for longer. I was there for like 4 months.
Yeah,
Then
the
we
thing
left.
is, like, there's good people and bad people everywhere you go.
Yeah. What about Europe? Do you have any like country stands out which you really enjoyed teaching?
I've spent a lot of time in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I still in the UK, but one of my favorite countries is Scotland. I really enjoy Scotland. It's beautiful. It's quiet. I don't know. It's just
What is
has
the
a good vibe.
guys doing yoga in kilts? Is that the deal?
There is a yogi I think called like Kilted Yoga on Instagram or something like that who does yoga in a kilt. Yeah, and you don't wear underwear, so you just let your freedom flag fly.
Downward dog is the
That's
favorite position.
I actually really enjoy teaching in Europe. I've taught most of Europe, like, and then like places like Bulgaria, like places that you wouldn't, people probably wouldn't assume. Like, I loved being there, and the people have been so amazing, and the country is really beautiful.
Yeah, country is beautiful, Bulgaria.
Yeah, there's still a lot of Europe I haven't been to.
Mm-hmm. Norway? Did you go to Norway?
I haven't been to Norway, but been to Sweden. I've been to Sweden a few times. I haven't been to Denmark. I mean, we could just list all the places I've been to. I've been to a lot of places in Europe.
Norway, definitely. I did I finished my master's degree there. One of the most beautiful countries ever. Just the scenery there, the fjords, the mountains. Oh, it's just beautiful.
Yeah, I really would like to go.
And also people, everyone speaks very good English.
Scandinavians.
Yeah. Do you know what's the main reason why Scandinavians' English is much better than Eastern Europeans?
Because they don't translate their TV. That's why Germans are awful. No, sorry, Germans.
Germans are pretty good actually, but the worst ones are like...
Some Germans are really good.
Yeah.
I used to have my German residency, and I've spent like 5 years trying to learn German. I still, I could understand quite a bit of German, but I'm still awful at speaking it because it's a hard language to speak.
Especially for English speakers, it is difficult, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I studied in school as well, a little bit.
Yeah. But I do my teacher trainings in Germany. I have for several years now. I like it there.
So can you teach yoga in any other language except English? Do you know all the names? And
Yeah. I don't know. Hebe deine Arme, bringe deine Hände vor zum Herzen, Vorbeuge, habe Vorbeuge.
Those are the names of positions?
No, I'm just saying, like, reach your arms over your head, bring your hands to your heart, fold forward, lift up halfway in German.
Okay.
I mean, like, I probably said it all wrong too. Had to pull somewhere deep. I'm like currently learning Indonesian right now.
Okay.
And so like the German just like got buried really, really deep.
Yeah.
I might be able to teach in Spanish. I don't know.
Yeah, but yoga language is so popular, like English. If you say, people understand most of the places, don't they?
Well, like, I mean, other than just saying all the Sanskrit names, Triangamukha, Ekapada, Pachinottanasana, Ekapada, Raja, Kapotasana. It's like these long names. There's some short names too, but yeah, like teaching in yoga, like half of teaching in yoga is telling people how to get in a pose.
So you do need to speak their language.
Yeah, but the other part is like there's more to it. Like I said, there's it's about connecting. Like the movement is very superficial. Right? That's just like the first layer. That's the moving through the layers of the self, the body, the breath, the emotions, the mind, and the heart. You know, like you're moving through these different layers of yourself that are all existing at once, but still you need to kind of like dive into them. And when you practice the movement, it's not just the movement, it's about connecting to everything that's deeper, about, you know, trying to find yourself, understand yourself. So just saying out the pose it's just like getting to a destination. I don't teach destination, I teach the journey. So yeah, I'm not really focused on poses. That's not my concern.
Okay, funniest stuff ever happened with you in a yoga class? Was it journey or was it destination?
I don't know. Like, I haven't had that many like funny things that have happened. I could tell like funny things that other people have done.
Well, like in your class.
Like in my class, I used to get like, I'd be assisting, assisting somebody, like a girl, like in a twist or something. And I'm very, very professional because I like being a yoga teacher. I don't want to be me too'd, so I'm very, very professional as a teacher. So I'm like assisting, and the girl like grabs my leg and starts stroking my leg like this. I just like have to stop and step away. Actually, it reminds me of another story that was.
Did you sneak in like a phone number in your sock?
No. Not only that, like my girlfriend's also in the class.
Oh no!
not that mattered at all, but it just made it even worse for me.
Wow.
Another class I was teaching that my girlfriend was in, I was assisting also in a twist, a friend of mine who's a yoga teacher, and sometimes yogis wear like yoga clothes that are less
see-through.
No, like just less material than they should be. And I'm like, I have her a twist, and I generally like when I'm doing assist, I don't always like, especially like a twist assist or assist that I have to be like a little bit more hands-on. I usually looking away, and so I'm looking away like this, and I turn my head back and I look down, and her breast is just completely out of her shirt. And this is like a good friend of mine, and so I reach my finger up by her collarbone and I slide my finger underneath her strap and like kind of pull it and then like adjust it back on. And she has her eyes closed, completely unaware, doesn't notice that it happened at all. Afterwards, I talked to her. I was like, oh, I actually have another story. We have several stories now. All these things that are coming up, all these horrific things that probably would get me too. But anyways, and she's like, I'm like, your boob fully fell out of your shirt. And she's like, no worries, that's okay. I was like, I felt it was okay because it was my friend. Yeah. And I'm glad that it was someone that
and
I
also
was
what kind
to.
Of person. You see, like some person can be triggered or whatever.
Right.
And this is the thing, like for you you in a very, tough position there. You have to be very careful, which you are, obviously.
Okay, I'll give you two, we're just horrible stories because they are coming up now. I was teaching in LA, in West Hollywood, and I used to teach at the Equinox in West Hollywood, which is where all the movie stars and producers and models like A-listers, they all go to this gym. A lot of them go to yoga and stuff. Anyways, I had like the same kind of group of people.
Was Matt Damon wearing G-string again?
That guy, let me tell you. I had like the same group of people always come. And I hadn't seen this one lady in a while. And she was like pretty fit, maybe like mid-30s, maybe 40. And I was assisting her. I don't remember what the pose was, but it looked like she was very thin everywhere, but she had like a little belly. And it, like she was maybe like 3 or 4 months pregnant. And I hadn't seen her in like maybe 2 months or so. And I was like, oh, are you pregnant? And she's like, no. And like literally my heart just dropped. Like fell out. I turned like ghost white. I didn't know what, I was so embarrassed. And I don't think I ever looked or talked to that person again. This is like, I hadn't been teaching that long either.
Oh God. And she wasn't pregnant.
She was not pregnant. Oh no, she was not pregnant.
Because I thought it's one of those when she would go, I'm just joking.
No, she definitely was not pregnant.
Oh God.
Okay, this is the worst thing I've done. And this actually was with a teacher that is on the island. She still teaches on the island in Ubud, friend of mine. We were doing like acro. It was like kind of a bit of an acro jam. So I wasn't teaching. We were just like playing around, and then we were doing some hollowbacks, and she wanted me to help her with her hollowback.
What is hollowback? So
a hollowback is like a handstand back bend.
Okay.
So really deep back bend, but also in a handstand.
Gotcha.
So
I will put a picture.
Yeah.
People to see.
Like
it's
you
right
see here.
Like a hollowback.
Here's a picture of me doing a hollowback. Amazing, right? So anyway, so she was doing like a 7 position hollow back, which is where the legs are piked. And then she was like really open in her shoulders, and I was kind of spotting her from, I was spotting her in her, which direction? Her butt was towards me, and her legs were away, and I was kind of on her side like this. And then she started to fall, and as she fell, I went to grab her, but as I grabbed her, just like out of instinct, I Donald Trumped her. If you know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I think the whole world knows what you mean.
And it was more like her pubic bone. I didn't really, but I also had to like grab onto her so that she, like, it was not the place that I would have chose to grab or anything. It was just kind of like instinct. If it was a dude, I probably would have grabbed the same place as well, which would have been even more funny and probably would have felt not as horrible about. But it was like just a second of, and then like we both just like started cracking up, like laughing. And again, I'm really glad it was my friend and not just some like random student. But I did learn from that on spotting and and especially that position where not to grab. Yeah. Yeah, that was probably like.
Is there a way to call it when you grab a dude like that? So you said Donald Trumping it for a girl. Is that like, is it Biden it or?
I don't. Biden's a cool dude. What are you talking about?
I don't know. Just heard some things. I don't know.
I mean, that would only make him cooler. Biden's gay? Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah, bro. You go get those dudes.
All them senior citizens, come on.
Yeah.
Unite.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh no, like that's what I was thinking. What about like the biggest one is always
we need a gay president.
We need,
dude, like a flamboyant gay president. Yeah, it's just like China, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Like one that's not going to put up with any shit.
You stop making clothes in those sweatshops.
Yeah,
we need proper stuff.
Yeah. Gay people don't. My brother's gay. You know, gay people don't take shit.
Oh yeah, I've worked with gay people. Yeah. I worked in gay clubs as a go-go dancer for a while. Yeah,
it's hot.
I know. I mean, like they just dudes. Some of them are big, massive, strong, and everything. It doesn't matter, you know. It's like kind of this is a perception. Then they think like most of them are very camp and flamboyant. Like some of them are just you come here, just fuck you, kind of thing.
Yeah. All right.
I remember this.
I don't know if I'm scared or turned on. I can't tell.
After this one set, I did the go-go dancing, and this guy comes over, like this big guy, looks 100% straight. He's way more straight than I ever been. And he looks at me, he's like, oh, that was a nice performance. I'm like, oh, thank you, cheers, man, thanks. And then he's like, there's a party at my house later tonight if you want to come join. I was like, oh, cool, who else is going to be there? It's like
just being here.
It was just so stupid. It's so like kind of just from countryside in Eastern Europe. Who else is going to be there? It's like, no, it's just
There's
us.
A party in my pants.
And then I'm like, I'm straight. And he's like, really? It's like, yes, I am. He's like, I would not tell.
Yeah.
Okay, about yoga classes. How often do you hear people farting?
Most of what you hear in a yoga class is not a fart. It's like a back fart. You know, it's like
with the backs on the floor. Yeah.
You generally don't hear people fart in a yoga class. You smell people fart in a yoga class, and it's disgusting. And if you ever go to yoga, don't fart. I teach a lot of pranayama, which is breathing for yoga. It's
through the ass.
Yeah. Megan Curry, a friend of mine, also she likes to say inhale through your butt. Serious. Shout out to Megan.
Shout out to Megan.
Who will never ever watch us, so like whatever.
Yes.
She also is on the island. But so when I teach pranayama, because people are doing a lot of breathing, sometimes fast, a lot of breath holds and stuff, and I'm like, there's one rule: don't fart. Mm-hmm. Like no one wants to be like inhaling deeply as someone else is just like.
Did you ever had anyone actually getting up and saying, this person is farting here, this is too much, I need to move? No?
No, but like when I first started teaching, I had a friend who she was teaching and she farted in class and it stunk really bad. And she took like, it was like this freshener spray or whatever that she went to spray. But instead of it like spraying out into a mist, it just shot like an oil onto a student. And so she like farted and it stunk. And then she just like sprayed a student with oil.
Oh my God. And that student became the best yoga teacher in the area. Oh my God. Poor thing.
I'm not going to shout out her name.
But there are certain positions in yoga, what you do, like it pushes on your belly and then, you tense and then you fart.
I always practice on an empty stomach. So I don't ever feel like the need to fart in yoga. When I generally teach yoga, it's like in the morning. And when I do yoga, like for my teacher trainings, it's in the morning. So if you don't eat in the morning, you tend, and like I wake up and I do my business. So yeah. And if I did have to fart really bad, I would excuse myself. Yeah. To the bathroom and then
do the rest of the session and do the toilet.
Do the decent thing.
Where's Dylan? He's doing yoga in toilet. Yeah. That's why they need bigger space and the wind is just going through. That's why Nirvana space was good.
It's like George Carlin, the comedian. Yeah. He's like, he did this bit like with smoking, right? Where people always be like, hey, do you mind if I smoke? He'd be like, no, do you mind if I fart?
It stinks, right? But
yeah, it stinks. If you're gonna smell, if I gotta smell yours, you're gonna smell mine. Like,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
And I still think about that anytime like someone smokes by me. Yeah. And like, California is really nice because people don't smoke in public areas, but here. Like I'm remodeling my house, and like every single one of my workers, they literally all live with a cigarette inside of their mouth. At least they smoke cloves, which are less offensive than like regular cigarettes. But it's still like,
how is it less offensive? They still stink.
But they don't stink as bad to me.
Really?
They stink, but they're just not as bad. But yeah, when I'm like sitting down somewhere and someone like smoking by me, I always want to be like, do you mind if I fart?
I just thought it's a polite thing to say.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna do it anyways. So. But I thought I'd let you know just so you could just so you like don't look at me or wonder where it's coming from. Just like so I don't have to wonder. I'm not wondering where your stink's coming from.
From firefighting and.
Are you still trying to go through my life?
A little bit.
It's not about where I've been.
Oh, it's about where you're going to.
It's not about where I'm going either.
No?
It's where I am.
It's where you are. Where are you?
I'm here right now talking with you.
Dodgy studio.
What kind of listeners do you have?
The best ones.
No, really. What's your demographic?
I have no idea.
No?
I have most of the people who subscribe to my YouTube channel, my friends. Yeah. It's like, please subscribe.
So we're just talking... it's the most important thing if you want to be successful at anything in life is to have a good group of cheerleaders. Oh yeah. And it's like just people that support you and support everything that you do.
I think most of them are going to unsubscribe now because you just call them cheerleaders.
Hey, I am where I'm at today because of my cheerleaders. Or just like people that like will root for you, that want you to do well. That's one of the things like leaving the fire department is like no one there is a cheerleader for you. Everyone is a cheerleader for themselves, right? But when I got into yoga, one of the things that especially when I moved to LA, so when I started teaching, I taught in a small town and my classes were full. There's only 2 yoga studios there, so there wasn't a lot of options. There wasn't like all these amazing teachers that I had to compete with. There's just like, you're the teacher on the schedule. People came to your class. So I had these full classes. And then when I went to LA, there was so much competition and everybody had been teaching forever and it was super hard to get into any studios. But I had friends that believed in me, that thought I was a good teacher, and they went out and like had my back and rooted for me. And it's like really, really because of the friends that I had there that I'm where I'm at now. And like, so in the same way, I try to be people's cheerleaders because I know how important that is to like get out there and like support your friends.
That's true.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, he's my cheerleader. Where are your pom-poms?
Oh, I just have tassels. They're under my shirt. No, but like, yeah.
That wire is bugging you, isn't it?
It is my OCD here. Now it's just like sticking. We've got to pull it down. I look at yours. Yours looks nice. It's amazing how your life changes and it's funny, like you go back to like what your parents said to you about you're not doing it for us, you're doing it for yourself. But it's amazing how your life changes when you're actually not doing it for yourself.
True.
And also it takes the pressure off. You know, like we have so much pressure to be something that we think that we should be or succeed in a way that we think we need to or whatever. Like there's this idea that we need to accomplish or get to a certain level or a certain goal. And no one cares about that but you. But if you think about like, well, how can I just help other people? And like that, and as soon as you change it from it all being about what you could do for yourself and to what you could do for other people, you notice like how you realize you're at the place you want to be already. And that's like really where you start to grow. And in yoga philosophy, they have these things called the gunas, which is how energy manifests itself in the universe. And there's 3 levels of gunas. There's the upward rising one, which is called rajas. The names aren't important. The downward one, rajas is not actually upward. It's outward and expands. And so, but it's like the energetic one. But you think if you use a lot of energy, eventually you run out of it. And so the balance of that's is tamas, and tamas is the grounding and consolidating. So it takes the energy and it pulls it back to center and it roots it down. And then you have sattva, and sattva is meant to be is the middle one. But the energy is actually ascension. When tamas and rajas, when these two are balanced, then sattva is in balance. And it's the only time that sattva arises. And this is where spiritual growth comes from. So the ascension is when you're in balance, you actually grow. And it's an amazing thing when you stop going out there and so they have different modes. The rajas is to do, tamas is to have, and sattva is to be. But it's the to be is where you grow. And so if you live always in to do, you'll burn out. And then when you burn out, you eventually go to have. And so then it's like to have is where you die. That's winter.
That's the fire department. That's where you die.
Yeah, that's where you die. So you just go there to die. One's not better than the other. Like you need to have all 3. All 3 need to be in balance.
How to figure the balance then?
It's easy. When you start to feel exhausted, you rest.
Okay.
When you feel rested, you go. And
but do you go to the point where you feel again exhausted, or you go to the point where
you don't need to? You just you start to find balance. You start to feel like this is what I need to do, and then there's it's when those 2 are in balance that the third one arises on its own. And this is like the being. It's like you're doing your purpose. You're out there doing what you're supposed to do, and you're also enjoying. To have the tamas is comfort, right? And as we know, like as a doer, as a fellow doer, like comfort is the worst thing, right? You never want to feel comfortable, but if all you do is do, you're not going to last long.
True.
Right? Like every marathon runner, no matter how good they are, eventually hits that wall and burns out. And the more that you push, the greater your chances of like catastrophically burning out.
That's so interesting that you talk about burning out now, because because it's been lately that people, my close friends are saying like, Renars, you're going to burn out. It's like I'm trying to do so many things at the same time. And I know back in my head that it's not right, but I feel like this is the opportunity and I should go with it. But then I sit down, I have no time for things when I'm so passionate, like stand up, where you need constantly writing and practicing. And I'm like, today, one of my stand-up comedian colleagues came to a coffee shop and he's like, Renars, I haven't seen you in practice for like 4 weeks. What's going on? I was like, I'm just so busy with this. And he's like, well, very sorry that we don't see you anymore. And then I'm like, this is one of my things. This is the thing what I really want to do. And I just push it aside because I have these other things. But when do I say no? When do I say like...
Stop being busy. Stop being busy.
How to do that?
It's easy. So if you want room for growth, you have to create space. So you have to clear your table, or just change your timeline, or just stop piling so many things on your plate. Start enjoying the things that you're doing.
Have you been there?
Oh yeah, when I saw it just in being a yoga teacher. When I thought my path to success was teaching as many classes as I could, and it was also what I needed to do to survive. So I was teaching on the schedule 18 classes a week, plus I was subbing as many classes as I could, plus I had privates, plus I was saying yes to every event, and at that time, like, it was necessary. I needed that grind, and I think there's a time where you need to grind, but again, you can't do that forever, because eventually you just burn out. I started cutting out yoga classes so that I could do things that were more fulfilling. Also, I noticed when I did less classes, the classes I did have were better, and I had more people in there. There was less opportunity. Like, instead of teaching 18 classes, I cut it down to 10, then I cut it down to 6, and then I cut it down to 3. And I think when I was the most popular in the height of my like teaching public classes, I was teaching 3 classes a week, and they were all waitlisted, and I had a lot of time to create a good class. And I also had time for myself to enjoy my life. And I became a better teacher because I got to work on me more. It wasn't always just like this outward. So there is a balance. Like, once you find that, then you start to grow. And that's one of the hardest things I did, was I gave all that up so that I could start traveling and teaching. And the more that I let it go, the more opportunities that I had. But it's a scary place to be, to let things go, to let the things that you really want grow. So yeah, you don't have to give it. The best advice for that is to do it gradually. Don't just be like one day this and the next day just like, okay, because that's going to send you into another place. But you just let a little bit go at a time, and you see how that space is filled and what it's filled with. Because doesn't matter how, like I say, don't be busy. You have 24 hours in the day. Hopefully you're sleeping for 8 of those, and then maybe another 2 hours of that is eating. And the rest of the time you're doing something. Whatever that is, it doesn't matter what it is, you're going to be doing something. But if you're doing something that makes you feel like you're busy and you're running from one thing to another, you're going to burn out. But if you're doing something that's like, oh, okay, this is the time where I do my like Bahasa lessons, or this is the time where I spend with my girlfriend, or this is the time where I study anatomy, or I work on, I'm very big into schedules, because schedules, you don't feel busy with a schedule. You feel busy when you're just constantly running from one thing to another. You're trying to fit things into it. But if you, I say, let's get rid of the word schedule and move into like routine. So like I wake up early in the morning. I have my morning me time, which is I wake up before my girlfriend does. That way I have that time alone, and that's really important to me to have that. And then I go to the gym and I, do my handstands and all the stuff that I need. Like, I need to be physical every single day, because it makes me feel good. Yeah. And that's a very selfish thing that I do. The non-selfish thing about it is I know when I do that I'm more mindful and I treat people better, just like having that morning time. I need that time for me, but I know the non-selfish part of that is if I have that time for me, I'm more aware, I'm more conscious, I'm more forgiving. It's
like maintaining your apparatus, maintaining your body and soul.
And sometimes, like, I know I need like so much time playing video games or whatever, like just because my mind is so filled all the time, I need something to empty it.
Yeah. That's what I feel sometimes, like with the video games, you just kind of turn everything off and it just kind of chills.
Yeah.
Or for me, the best way I clear my mind or don't think about any things is like training, but especially swimming. I find out if I do laps, just go back and forth, and my mind doesn't think about it.
That's your yoga, bro.
Yeah.
That's how yoga shows up for you.
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to ask you about as well, like meditation and how many different ways people can meditate and what works for some people. And, like, obviously now it's known that it's no one way or, this is how you have to meditate, legs and pretzel and, and I think I can even meditate when I do speed riding on a motorbike. Is that possible? Can you meditate like that?
It depends on what your definition of meditation is, and it depends on what you're trying to get out of it. So meditation, generally, you have a pathway and you have a goal. With anything, you have a pathway and you have a goal. So like traditionally, you'd have two different types of meditation. One is shamatha, which means tranquility. The other one is vipassana, which means insight. So like understanding yourself. And those two aren't exclusive from each other, meaning you could do both at the same time. And then also along that, there's a lot of different subsections off of that. But generally, like how, and this is like the beginning levels of meditation, because you could go deeper where you're really trying to find like the dissolution of self. But let's keep it super easy on this one, because you could go way deeper. Basically, the caveat to this is that there is more than what I'm saying. But two different types of meditation. One, I'm meditating because I'm trying to feel good. So this could be a bit, or whatever, like a visualization meditation, right? Brings me to a place of tranquility. Or I used to do a lot of visualization meditations when I was rock climbing. When I'd get into a really hard problem, I would go through every single move in my mind and just imagine myself doing it over and over and over till I committed it to memory. And you could call that meditation. Some people might not. It's like meditation's kind of become this looser word. Basically, when I think about meditation, I think about finding the tendencies of the mind. And from that, other things will arise. One, that you and your mind are not different. Like we often think like there's a person behind the mind. There's someone behind the thoughts watching those thoughts, and those two things are different, but those things are the same. And which is a journey of first you have to understand what the mind is doing. And so the mind always wants to go to the most interesting. That's generally like, so if you're sitting there and you hear something that's more interesting than listening to the breath or focusing on the breath, or if a thought comes up about your past or about your future or whatever, those are all more interesting than just focusing on the breath. And so you start to recognize, well, where does the mind want to wander and what does it want to go to? And that teaches you about yourself. And then it's the mind's like an animal. If you think about it, it's like if you've ever had a dog before, when you get a dog as a puppy, they're untrained, they just pee wherever they want, poop wherever they want. And so if you go to try to train that dog and you start yelling at it and scolding it and rubbing its face and its yuck or whatever, then
that always works.
Yeah, then that's not how you really train a dog. You take the dog outside, he goes to the bathroom outside, you go, good boy, oh, that's a good boy. And then you reward it that way. It's like kind of the same thing with meditation. As your mind wanders, you notice that it wanders, and you start to train it by rewarding it. Oh, my mind wandered. Good job. Like I do counting, and so I inhale, exhale 1, or inhale, exhale 2. Right. So counting the breath like this, and I'm just focusing on the breath, and then something else comes up, and I go, oh, that was a thought, that was the future, that was a story, that was the past or whatever. I label it as whatever it is, and I come back to the breath. And I'm always trying to get back to 1. I'm never trying to get to 10. Because the goal isn't to make it to 10, the goal is to recognize the thoughts.
Wow.
And so once I recognize the thoughts, that tells me something about myself. What am I, and then I after my meditation, I usually don't think about it in my meditation because that's thoughts. And the goal is not necessarily not to think, but to recognize what you're thinking, because the mind's always going to think. It's always looking for what's more interesting than the breath. So I call that meditation. Some people, for them, it's more that shamatha. So maybe being out on a motorcycle or swimming or skydiving or whatever
walking down the beach when people do in the mornings and stuff.
Or running. So all those things bring you in a sense of tranquility. And but that's only going to bring you a sense of tranquility. It's never going to give you anything more than that. Not saying that tranquility is not important. Of course it is. We all need that. We need to feel at peace. We need to feel comfort. But if you really want to grow from meditation, it's a little bit more strict than that.
Do you think everyone should try meditation? Are there people who don't need meditation? Are there people who are They don't
should, need.
Yeah,
I mean, it's so subjective. I don't know. If you feel like you should, or if you feel like you need to, then you probably should. And if you feel like you don't, then you're not ready anyways.
Or just as we talked before about opening your horizons and widening your horizons, learning more about your body and your soul and your mind, and that could be one of those things.
Yeah. I think if you start with like a seated meditation practice and you spend time like going through and understanding the thoughts arise, then as you progress with that, your meditation doesn't need to be there only. It starts to become a part of your, like, everything in your life, because you've trained your mind that way. It's like, so when your thoughts come up, when you're just doing other things, you recognize them coming up because you trained your mind. It's like having a well-trained dog, you know. But also there needs to always be a little bit of forgiveness with that. Like when I had a dog, he was very good. I'd have him, you know, sit and I'd pour his food in front of him, and he wouldn't eat until I told him it was okay to eat, or I told him to stay. I could like go and do anything, and he would stay until I gave him the command not to. But if I told him to stay and he was sitting there and then a squirrel ran by, like, his training only goes so far. And the better trained you are, the less reactive you become. And I think that's a really important thing in life, is to understand how to be to be active and not reactive.
Not reactive, yeah.
Reactivity is important to keep us safe. We need it, but almost in every situation, to be active is more important. And like as a stuntman, you know, like you need to act. You're never reacting. Like you expect something to come, and when you see it coming, you make the action that keeps you safe. You know, it's like if I threw a ball at your face and you didn't know it was coming, you might like throw your hands up and be like, you know, whatever. And
that's what I do.
I know, because I've done this before with you, and you're like, oh, you know, that would be a reaction. But if you knew the ball was coming, then you would just catch it like a normal person, which would be an action. But that's a lot of times, like when we get into a situation that triggers us, let's say emotionally triggers us, makes us feel a certain way, attacks who we are as a person, attacks our identity or whatever. And then thoughts and anger and feelings come up, and then so we become reactive rather than you understand your mind. You see those things come up and you go, okay, I'm feeling this way because this person triggered this, which came from my childhood, which has nothing to do with this person. And so now, instead of being like, oh, I'm a victim and I'm reacting or whatever it is, it's like, now it's like, I understand that, I recognize this, and then you could take action, which is almost always, if I would say always, more intelligent than just reacting. So I think meditation really helps for that.
Okay, so this last segment, we kind of finishing and talking a little bit about books, movies, about people who kind of inspired you, like all of these things, what kind of shaped your life and something what you really cherish. And for books, one of the first ones which I could straight away to relate, and I read it already in the past, and I re-listened it in an audio version. It's The Sapiens, and this book is definitely just with very interesting concepts and how explaining how humans are working and how we explain certain things, why we do what we do. And I think one of my favorite bits is about when they talk why the sapiens they were more advantage, or they had more advantage over the other species, was about that, like how we would tell the stories and how we tell the tales, and like how we would continue these stories from generation to generation, which essentially becomes a collective knowledge, and that's how we are, much better than the other ones. How about you? What was your kind of reasons why you enjoy this book?
It's actually, I just go off of what you just brought up. Richard Dawkins, he wrote a book called The Selfish Gene, and he talked about, one thing that we pass on in every generation are genes. And he's actually the one in that book that he coined the term meme. So a meme is meant to be like a gene that we pass on, but it's a behavioral trait. That's where the word originated from. And so because memes are essentially cultures passed on, that we're, with language and communication and stories, we're able to essentially change our evolution much quicker than our genes or the evolution of genes. And so behavioral traits and how we went from agriculture to like industry to technology to like whatever we are now, AI, has been through this, our ability to pass information more than just genes on. Because if you look at other species that don't have language, they don't have writing, they don't have stories, they're basically kind of stuck to whatever their genes are going down. I mean, there are little meme stuff, but yeah, that's a really interesting thing. That book has, I read 3 of his books, the Sapiens, the Homo Deus, and then 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. So I think all those books are really impactful. And Yuval Noah Harari, the author, he's also someone that does a lot of meditating. I think he spends like maybe half the year doing like meditation or something, but like that's where a lot of his ideas come from, is from that deep contemplation. One of the things that was kind of interesting that opened my eyes to a lot of things is with truth, all when you think about truth, a lot of times when I write on my Instagram or I wrote a book or anything that I'm trying to explain, I try to do it as close to the truth as possible and as little opinion. And I think all the truths that are there are always there because that's what makes them truth. Truth is, in yoga, the word for truth is sat, which means eternal. And so, not direct translation like that, but it's the unchanging truth, like meaning if it's true in the past, it'll be true in the future. In Sapiens, they talk about 3 different truths: subjective, objective, and intersubjective. Intersubjective truths are the truths that we believe in, that are only true because a group of us believe in. So this idea, like each one of these ideas from the book, like I've spent a lot of time kind of contemplating in deeper thoughts of it. So he doesn't go so deep into intersubjective truths in there, but it's money, borders, titles. And one of the things that I started to think about with intersubjective truths, that all these things that are only true because that we believe that they're true, all of them only have one function, and that's to create separation. A title like doctor or lawyer or president or vice president, whatever it is, like that is to say that this person has the role or separate, but that role doesn't actually really exist, or that person is not really that thing. It's only there because we say it's real. Borders, same thing, create separations between countries. Like there are no borders when you look from space, unless you're in an island, and then you're bordered by the ocean. But Indonesian, here's an island nation that has a border that's not bordered by the, Bali's borders. It's like that's Bali, but the island, but we're still part of Indonesia. Or people or money. Like money is one of those great things that doesn't mean anything, or crypto. There's one that's really does only exist, because we believe it exists. But the more that you have of money or whatever, it puts you in different social economical classes, and all these things create separation, which is really interesting because intersubjective truths are the least true of all the truths, because as soon as we stop believing in them, they no longer exist. And when you think about it like a separation, when you stop believing in these intersubjective truths, then separation also goes away with it. Do you think that one of the beginnings for them was like something like religion? Like when someone with a great charisma comes up and says, listen, you guys, if you're not going to believe in this and this God, then it's going to smite you and it's going to punish you and whatever. And these people, let's believe it. Let's, and then they can kind of convince them, and they continue just pushing their agenda and their rules, and like obviously gaining stuff out of these people who they control and who they scare. Definitely that's like a big subject you could go into. But if we make it a little less attacky to the people that believe in religion, I would say I would go more to beginnings, how it started. Yeah, we could say that it's the stories. Yeah, right. A religion is, talk about let's get one like believing in like Zeus or Athena or whatever. Like these are stories, but because people are only able to trust so many people, if we all trust a story, then I could trust you because you believe in the same story that I believe in.
Right.
And so that definitely helped. Yeah. So that's what it comes down to, like kind of like trusting these things. And yes, there was a lot of control there, especially through religion, because, man's law only goes so far, but God's law, if you don't, you not only are going to pay here, but you're also going to pay afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's not.
Yeah, and in end of the day, it was just like to sell that story and to convince people that this is the truth. Because, back in the days, you couldn't check out all these facts and then like Google and whatever. So you go to church, that's the local place where the smart people or the priest is. The one person who can read and write in the whole village. I don't know, for some reason, I'm just going to very small villages in Eastern Europe. But then, the priest said that it must be truth.
But yeah, and you definitely say religion's the inner subjective truth, because look at how many religions that people don't believe in anymore that are no longer religions because people stop believing. And so if you stop believing in God, does God still exist? That's a pretty deep theological question.
Yeah.
That people that believe would say, of course God still exists, but if no one's believing. Yeah. Anyways, don't want to get too deep into that one. And then like subjective truths and objective truths. So these are also really important. Like, I feel like I've talked about these a lot on podcasts, but it is something that this has kind of shaped how I look at life in general. It's like objective truth is the truth. It is the absolute truth. And the difficult thing about objective truth is we will never know it. And the reason why we'll never know it is like how we talked about in the beginning, is we're always looking through truth through our lens, and we can't remove that lens. And so our subjective truth is always going to be the truth that we see, and we can only see it from ourselves. And so we'll never see ourselves because we're the ones looking. So we can never see ourselves objectively because it's always going to be through that lens. But this is where perspective, I think tying the whole thing all together, comes from, is we could step farther and farther away from ourselves and we stop seeing truth as subjectively as we do. And we'll never see objective truth, but at least we could understand that it's there. And I think just that in itself is important enough to try to look for. Yeah, that was a powerful book for me in a lot of ways, which is interesting because like the majority of the book is just about the history of man and how we came about, but he does bring some very deep questions. So I pondered a lot about it. Great book.
Yeah, it is definitely. And then I try to get into the other two books, Being Nobody, Going Nowhere by Aya Khema. She was a Buddhist monk. Yeah, and The Way of Zen. But the audio versions what I got, I'm honestly, I could not concentrate. It was monotonous. It was very difficult to comprehend. But if you can just tell me a little bit about why these two books.
Being Nobody, Going Nowhere is, it's just a deep philosophical book written by a Buddhist monk, kind of a lot of Buddhist philosophy and just the path or the journey of understanding the self, the middle way, which I tend to, it is maybe a harder one, especially it's not like a gateway book for coming into this type of philosophy, because it requires a bit of kind of like a little bit of knowledge or understanding already. It's like the first time I came to Bali, I went and saw a Swami talk at the banyan tree, and he has a following here. I don't know if he still talks here. This is like 11 years ago or so. And he was talking about non-duality. And it was the first time I ever heard about non-duality, which is crazy because it's something that I think about all the time. And like, especially being a yogi or in Bali, you hear all the time. But if you're not in that scene or in Buddhism, whatever, it doesn't make any sense. And non-duality means that there's not two. And the idea that there's not two doesn't, the reason why I say not two is because you can't have one without two.
Right.
Right. And so that's why they make that distinction. Another way to say that there's not two is there's the whole. It's the illusion. So in yoga, they talk about Maya. Maya means illusion, that we're separate. And this is going back to like separation, I believe, especially in Buddhism. And it talks about a lot in being nobody going nowhere. Separation is one of the roots of suffering, attachment and connection. This is a really hard idea for most people to understand because it's our nature to be attached to things. If I'm attached to things, am I attached to something? I want it to make me happy. So I don't want it to change. And if it changes, then my happiness changes with that. And so like we were talking in the break, we both recently lost our fathers. And so, we're attached to our fathers, to being, it's my dad. He's going to be there when I get married, when I have kids and all these things. And now he's gone. And so he's not going to be there for any of those things. And so we both lost something with that. And that's the attachment. And when you have that, then there's a bit of happiness that goes and you feel a loss from that separation. But I don't know if you feel this yet or not, but I definitely do. Like after my father being gone for it's, I guess it's been 1.5 years now, I feel what's left, which is the connection. And this is we're different, but we're not separate. And we only feel separate because we have this subjective point of view. And like now, like I feel my father, and not being a religious person or whatever, but I actually feel the connection that I have with him. Because once the suffering fades, the pain fades, then the connection is what's left, and the love is what's left, and that love, will never go, because that's actually the truth. Going back to that idea that truth is unchanging. And so this has helped me even more understand this idea that we're not separate. We're all connected. Like I truly feel my father. I don't know if.
I was just wanting to say that definitely there's so many cases, like on everyday thing, I would say, oh, how would my dad would deal with this? Oh, he would actually do this. Should I do that? Do I think the same way? Yeah, and this time it's like very often I can feel like my father's presence and the way I act, the way I talk, because like we were very similar, very extrovert, and like he was that crazy party person, like attracting attention. But one of the main reasons why my dad passed away was alcoholism. So he was alcoholic, and he never knew when to stop continuing partying. In me, very early, I learned I don't want to end like my dad. So I always knew that's my break. Okay, no, that's it. I'm done. I would go away from the party, whatever that is. And he would kind of didn't have that point of break. And that's one of the things he taught me, to have that point of break, not to end up like him and stuff. But there's so many other beautiful things. So
with my dad, it was skydiving.
Really?
No, it was cancer, but but he would have enjoyed that joke.
Shout out.
Yeah. So this, connection is what is real. It's the attachment that's not real. And so this idea that we're not separate, we're not different. It's whole. We're all one. But that's one that I'm still playing with and contemplating. This idea of non-dualism. And I think the important thing with any philosophy is when you take a philosophy, you look at it and you say, like, how is this useful? How can I actually use this philosophy to better my life? And if it's not doing that, then it's not a good philosophy. But I found with this non-dualism, like this idea of like seeing you as me and me as you is really helpful. It opens you up for compassion, for love, or diminishes suffering. It helps you understand people, because you essentially, we're all the same. Like I said in the beginning, when you listen to someone's story, why stories are so captivating is because we see ourselves in those stories. They make sense to us because a good story captures the human condition. And since we're all humans, we're all sharing that condition. Good book. Recommend reading it, especially if you want a little bit deeper into it. It is a challenging one. The Way of Zen, that one, I think is that one. That one's not.
Yeah,
bad.
The Way of Zen by Alan Watts.
I think that's a bigger book. I didn't, when you asked for my book recommendations, I didn't know you're going to be listening to them. Alan Watts, I think I can't even tell you what's in The Way of Zen. I think that was maybe the first one, or maybe I just gave you one because I've read almost all of his books, if not all of them, as well as listened to a lot of his lectures. And he just speaks truth. And even though I think he died in the 70s, maybe later. Don't hate me if I don't know when Alan Watts actually died, but everything that he says makes so much sense to me. And I think that's when you know when you're listening to truth, is because when someone says it and you've never heard it before, it just makes sense.
And it was a long time ago as well.
And it was a long time
ago. Like the values and that is still there.
Yeah, I probably read that book probably 12 years ago. Is when I read the first Alan Watts book. Yeah, I think I read Be Here Now, which is Ram Dass. And then someone said, if you like Ram Dass, and which I love Ram Dass a lot, then you love Alan Watts. And I was like, oh, okay, check it out. And then I was just like, love at first sight, And
nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So anything Alan Watts, I recommend. If you just want to hear some truth, and listen to his lectures. He's pretty charismatic as well. And yeah, he's got a good.
What was he doing? So he was professor of philosophy, or what was he teaching?
His life is kind of interesting. So he actually started in like seminary to be a priest.
To be a priest,
yeah. And then I think he's a pretty strong atheist as well now. But yeah, he was a lecturer, philosopher, author.
Nice one. And yeah, that's also one of your favorite people. But before we go to people, I want to talk movies, because that's the area where I'm more knowing, and I don't know, maybe I can open you some truths about movie stuff.
What movies did I tell you? Because we originally set up to do this like a year ago.
Yeah, I did, because I dig this up and I said, is this still your truth? Oh, I'm gonna use this a lot now. Is it still your truth?
Yeah.
The movies were Fight Club, Dumb and Dumber, and The Matrix.
Yes, those are some good movies. My girlfriend probably hasn't seen any of them.
She wasn't born then yet. Oh, shit.
She was born. Matrix came out in 99.
She was wearing very nice diapers in those days.
Matrix came out in 99. I remember because I graduated high school in 99, and I remember watching it in the theater, and we got there late, and so I had like the very front row all the way to the end. And it was like the massive screen, and it starts with a cursor blinking in the corner, and all I saw was a blank screen, and my buddy was like hitting me and going like pointing up to the corner. I'm like, and then I came back and watched it again. But yeah, that movie is a very philosophical movie. Yeah. In so many ways, and it does ask a lot of like kind of Buddhist questions,
and the crazy thing is, like, I love to talk about these movies with people who grew up in different parts of the world. So you saw it in the States, in like the cinema. I saw this movie on a shitty VCR in my dad brought this whatever from somewhere. It was very horrible quality with the Russian dubbed voiceover. It wasn't even in English. And I think I was also like high school, about to graduate high school around that time. But then most likely also that film came to us like 2 years later than when you saw it. But for me, again, like at the beginning, I just was mesmerized by all the martial arts, because at the time I was, doing karate and like doing like wall flip. I was like, how did they do it? For me, those the big ones. But obviously, every time I watched it again and again, and I started thinking, oh, the blue pill, the red pill, blue pill. What does that represent? Like, and even today, if you watch it, you're gonna be like, oh, what did they mean by that?
Yeah,
it's one of those movies. Yeah.
Like, I mean, that goes into the Indian philosophy of Maya, the red pill, blue pill, of like, so the Indians see the world as illusion. And the illusion is so good that you believe it. And if you go a little bit deeper into it, when we talk about that non-dualism, so they describe it as an upside down banyan tree. So a tree where the branches grow down and the roots grow up. And so that's in the Bhagavad Gita. And the only place that you will see that in nature is the reflection of a tree growing by a lake or a pond. You could look and you could see the tree where it's upside down. And if the water is still, so this is like talking about the mind and meditation. So if I'm thinking about, if my mind's all over the place in yoga, these are called vrittis. Vrittis are modifications or changes in the mind. So if you think about this pond, it's got ripples, it's got leaves, it's got debris. And so the reflection is really muddy. You can't see reality that well. But as you clear the mind, Neo. As you clear the mind and you clear the debris and the water stills, then you get to see the truth, what it is. But you're still looking at a reflection. And we will always look at that reflection because, again, we think that we're different. We think that we're separate. The reality is that we're not. And so that's what it takes to look up.
I think also around that time, that's where I already went to uni. I think the Matrix kind of represented the government in my eyes. Someone who can give you all this kind of false information and you start making you believe in these things. It's like, this is a matrix and you live in it. And you kind of, that was the first time when I started thinking that way. And it's such a thought-provoking film. And it's amazing how, it just went like a wildfire around the world and people start kind of thinking about this stuff.
I remember all the ads going up for it was like, what is the Matrix? It was like this very ambiguous kind of thing. And so there's all this like, what's the Matrix? What is the Matrix? Yeah.
So Dumb and Dumber, the first time I saw it, I was like, what the hell is this? Like growing up with Russian kind of comedies, which were always had like very like a deep thought and like very smart sense of humor kind of thing. I was like, what the hell is Dumb and Dumber? But that was classic. It would, it was kind of, now when I watch it, I was like, oh yeah, I can appreciate a lot of that stuff. When as a kid, I didn't understand. And Jim Carrey, like for me, it's huge. And what was the other actor's name?
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels. Have you seen him in a film Newsroom? The TV series.
Yes. He's so good.
So good. And the craziest thing, I ever seen him only in Dumb and Dumber, and now I've seen him in Newsroom, like this eloquent, like coherent news. It's like, what?
Yeah. Dumb and Dumber. You mean you've had 2 pairs of gloves? You've had an extra pair of gloves this whole time? I haven't seen the movie in forever.
It still
and
can
I
quote
can it still make so many quotes.
Yeah. And then the last film, Fight Club.
Fight Club,
yeah,
just so good.
Fight Club. One cool thing, what I can say from as a stuntman, I was working with Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah.
On Enola Holmes too. She was playing the Nola is the sister of the Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah. And
she was playing the mother. So we did this pretty cool fight scene where obviously my ass got beaten up by Enola Holmes, and so she was there, Helena, and like on a set, we're like 3 days, and she's just such
she's married to Tim Burton,
cool
right?
lady. Yeah. And then apparently they live in separate houses or something. Like, cause my very first film I ever worked was with Tim Burton, but I was extra. I was just getting to qualify to get on British Stunt Register, and you need to do the those days of extra days, certain amount, and then you can qualify. And I remember I was falling asleep on that Ferris wheel or something with that extra stuff. It was boring. But anyway, so Helena, she was like, most of the stunt guys around were like, oh my God, she's like this big actress and stuff. And I didn't click the dots. Who is she? And I was just very chill. And actors feel that so well.
Best line in Fight Club. I haven't been fucked like that since grade school. My God. That's like one of the funniest. I don't. It actually might even be an outtake from it. I don't even know if it's in the movie or if I just watched it like in one of the extended director's cuts or whatever. But when Brad Pitt's like, yeah, she says some really fucked up shit in bed, and she's like, yeah, I haven't been fucked like that since grade school. He's like, what? I think one of those movies where, That's also has a lot of like philosophical aspects of it as well, which is kind of funny. I mean, Dumb and Dumber doesn't really so much. It's just stupid, which plays to like the stupidness. Like I'm a stupid person, and I like stupid things. Yes, thank you. But Fight Club is really like, it has this theme of like, what is it like to hit rock bottom? Mm-hmm. You know, you're not a beautiful and unique snowflake. You're the all-seeing, all whatever shit of the world kind of. Yeah, and it was, I don't know. It like, I think also at the age, you know, it was pretty young when it came out, and when I saw it, and everyone wanted to start a fight club, and it was just, it was so cool with Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. Just
Brad Pitt's physique was insane.
Yeah,
just like in Snatch.
In Snatch, dude. Yeah. Snatch made me wanted to get. That's actually why I'm covered in tattoos. Is because that movie Snatch.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt's all covered in. Don't tell anybody. I should never admit that to anybody. Brad Pitt.
Because there's much deeper meaning to it.
No. I've covered up almost all my tattoos with other tattoos that have no meaning. They don't really have meaning. I mean, I have some little meaning things, but I didn't want to have meaning to my tattoos anymore because my old tattoos had meaning. I still have one on my back that I'm going to cover up that has meaning that I don't tell anybody about. But yeah, hitting rock bottom, which I think like it showed itself later in my life. Like when I think one of the reasons why I tried so hard as a yoga teacher is because when I really just trained my life to be a firefighter paramedic, that was my career, and I had like this little bit of yoga teacher thing on the side. And when I lost my job, I had just bought a house, which I couldn't afford. So I didn't lose the house, but I had to move out of the house because I couldn't afford it. So I rented it out. And it just really felt like I was kind of like worked towards all these things. It was definitely not rock bottom. I could have gone way lower.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like, I needed to have basically the safety net pulled out from underneath me, that it was either like sink or swim kind of thing. Yeah, you like how I just take these movies and just make them about myself. Yeah, that's what it's about.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Take whatever and just make it about you.
But rock bottom, listen, like I don't know about if it's the rock bottom, but the idea of how you're gonna learn or how you're gonna grow if you're not gonna fail.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when as a kid, I don't know how it was in your family, in your community. In our community, if you're failing, that's bad. You're a failure, you know. No one ever said like, oh yeah, try, you fell, that's it, continue. The next one is going to work. We never had that.
You only fail if you give up.
Yeah, and they mainly would say like, hey, listen, probably you should stop. You've been failing too much or whatever, you know. And like, can we say the rock bottom is failing as failing? It's just a really big failing, right?
I mean, everything in life happens in waves. There's, as Alan Watts, to quote Alan Watts, it's peaks and troughs. So the peak is, the difficulty is with either the peak or the trough is you're usually never at the peak or at the trough. You're usually on one way. You're either on your way up or you're on your way down.
Right.
And you don't usually recognize when you're at either the top or the bottom. And so it's a little bit scary to be on the way up. Because if you're on the way up, you know you're eventually going to be on the way down. You know, because look at the stock market, look at everything in life. That is the nature of life, is to move in waves. But as long as you understand that where you are on that wave, that it's whether it's on the way up or the way down, that's going to change. You know, the fundamental rule of the universe is that everything is always changing, continuously arising and returning to source.
What was the other saying, that this too shall pass?
This too shall pass, yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter
this
good
too shall pass. Yeah. So yeah, it's more important to ride the waves than like, if you're rock bottom doesn't stay rock bottom for long, and bottom always changes.
Yeah, and who else said like the greatest thing about rock bottom is when you hit it, there's no way lower down. So it's always the only way out is up.
And honestly, we could always go lower. You know, like rock. No one, I don't believe anyone's ever really hit rock bottom. Like no matter how bad it is, it could always be worse.
Imagine someone says like, "Oh, I hit such a rock bottom. I lost my Ferrari and I'm driving now Prius."
Yeah, it could be worse. I'm homeless. Oh, it could be worse. I'm incarcerated. It could be worse. I'm incarcerated in Kenya. It could be worse. You know,
Oh shit. Yeah.
you know, it's like it could always be worse.
Yeah.
And you could say the same thing. It could always be it could always be better. But the only truth to it is it can't be anything other than what it is right now.
Favorite people. So we have Alan Watts, who we already talked about. Then there's Ram Dass and Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, they're all basically the same type of person. Ram Dass, he was a yogi. He started out as a professor and then got really big into acid. And then, yeah.
Was it the one who was like famous acid guy? Who was...
yeah, that was his partner, Timothy Leary. So Timothy Leary and Ram Dass.
Right.
They were both professors at Harvard. Timothy Leary got more into like the media and stuff, really stood up for it. And Ram Dass went to India, met his teacher Neem Karoli Baba, and became a bhakti yogi, and then started spreading this message of love and
acid.
Yeah, and that, yeah. Well, like, who was it? Sam Harris. He talks a lot about like the power of psychedelics and being able to expand the mind and think in different ways that you can, and that it's almost necessary for understanding, like, to do psychedelics. I've never done acid though. I think I'd like to try. I've done psilocybins, which I don't know, are fun. I expanded my mind before any kind of drugs. So
earlier when you said about intention, the things we need to do in life, like we meditate with intention. The first time, since English is my third language, the first time I ever heard intention was like when I wanted to do mushrooms in Bali, and someone said, "You have to have intention," and I'm like, "What the fuck is intention? I just want to get high."
Yeah, that's your intention. Just want to have fun.
Yeah, and I did. I had a really good time.
Yeah, that's important. Yeah, Ram Dass, he just passed away not too long ago. Really sad. Never got to hear him speak. Yeah.
As a kid, do you remember, like, did you had any pivotal point, any person in your life who was like a guide, who was a mentor, who was told you something, what you remember all the entire life, whether it was bad or good, but it changed and shifted your life?
Hulk Hogan.
I was just about to say the fourth person should be Hulk Hogan.
Yeah,
because you had the whole workout stuff when you did training at home with it.
No, I grew up very uninspired. Yeah, I was a stupid kid. I just like to play rock music, metal mostly, and have fun. Like, I wasn't a very deep thinker about anything. Wasn't a very forward thinker or future thinker or anything. I was just like about having a good time. I was a very good kid.
Never got in trouble and stuff.
Never got in trouble. Never did any drugs. Not that drugs are bad.
I'm like looking in the mirror right now. This is really weird.
Yeah.
Because I was like, also, I remember kids, people now would say, "Oh, you probably were the bad boy and stuff." Like, no. I was like, I would train, I would do stuff. Like, I would maybe have some alcohol, but like only in like some big parties or whatever. And it was, because in my family, like the alcohol was such a big evil thing, because dad was drinking and my mom was like, "If you ever drink, I would kill you in your sleep," or something like that, in those lines.
I actually hated weed for the longest time, or cannabis, as my dad would say. Weed was given to it, or marijuana was a name given to it by the government to make people dislike it. I think it was from Mexico or Mexican, like that was a bad thing. I was very against cannabis because my dad habitually smoked weed all day, and so I never touched anything. Because the worst thing you could be as a kid is to be like your dad, and then you grow up and you realize that you're exactly like him.
But was that when he was smoking, was he in any way like aggressive or anything like that?
No, he was happy. My dad was super charismatic. Like, all my friends loved him. He was fun. Yeah,
See, I wish my dad would discover weed instead of alcohol, man.
My dad's drank for a bit, but he was an asshole when he drank, and he quit drinking because he realized he was an asshole. My dad had definite anger. That's what I never got from my dad, was his anger. My dad had a lot of anger issues and stuff. Just no control. But like most people, we get more mature as we get older and start to deal with our problems. Fortunately, it took my dad until he was an old man. I mean, he died at 67, so he wasn't that old, but it took him into his later years before he really started to figure his stuff out.
Yeah. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy.
Life's crazy.
But it's fun. It's fun to be part of it. It's fun to see these things happening, to experience it. And what do you do? Do you ever have, like, as you said, you don't really have anger, but if you do have, what is the way you deal with it? Is it meditation? Is it training? Is it, because for me, it's definitely training. If I have any upsetting feeling, I go train. I'm definitely going to feel better afterwards.
That used to be training, but I'll get upset about something, but it'll be something like with my house that, the workers did something and I had to spend a bunch of extra money, but it's like little sorry, I pulled my back and just like seized up at me like when I move wrong.
And we have here yoga superstar. He just pulled his back.
I pulled my back the other day. I don't know. I actually have no idea what I did, but
someone with all your knowledge doesn't know what happened.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I don't know everything. I can't remember the last time I was upset or angry or anything like actually angry. Like if I'm upset, like I just like, this is a bad situation, but I don't let any of those negative emotions affect me in any way ever. Like it never it's like, oh, this sucks. Okay. And then, yeah. So I don't need to deal with any of them. I feel like I used to, but I've been doing this work for a long time on myself, and I think it works, which is nice. Never get advice from the person that's like, oh, this is how you do it, but they're still like doing the same shit, I'll tell you how to work with your hair, motherfucker. It's like,
especially getting fitness or nutrition advice from some overweight person.
Yeah, that
always works. Listen, we're almost there. Just the last thing, I call it the bombs of wisdom. What would be your bombs of wisdom to, whether it's to young people or younger people or people who would be interested to go into yoga, right? Or also something like a little bomb of wisdom for younger version of yourself in the past. So let's start with the yoga people first.
With yoga, the most important thing is to show up. I think that's life in general. Just show up. Don't worry about being good. Don't worry about being bad. Don't judge it. Just be there. Everyone's a beginner. There's a famous quote by this person, Winnie the Pooh.
I thought you just said I need to poo.
No, okay. No, Winnie the Pooh. He's a lovable bear that likes honey. There's one of a quote by him, like, where should we start? I don't know. How about the beginning? Yeah. And it's like such a simple idea. Like we all start at the beginning. So don't be afraid to be beginner. And also a beginner is just a label, and it's only real because you believe it's real.
Perfect.
Yeah. What was the other question?
Younger version of yourself.
Younger version of myself. What would I say to myself as I was younger?
Yeah, I just said, like, what would be your kind of little suggestion or little like encouragement if you would be the mentor? I told you never had that mentor when you were younger. Because it's a weird concept. Like if you would see yourself just a younger version.
Yeah, I would say get started in yoga earlier. Do whatever you're doing, but just do it earlier. And then invest in the stock market like a long time ago and buy. Dude, I am not a crypto person, but like back when crypto first came out, when Bitcoin was a brand new thing, my buddy was so into it and he's like trying to get me to buy it. I'm talking like I don't know, like 2000 and whatever, like whenever like crypto really first came out, when you could buy like a coin for like $5. Like he wanted me to get into it. I should have done that. And then even if I didn't get out until now, I still would have been massively wealthy. But now I would say like cryptos, don't buy it. Don't buy crypto. Or NFTs. What is it? What is an NFT anyways? I actually know a lot about this, but most people don't, and don't do it.
I always had some friend of mine was telling about NFTs like 2 hours. I was just sitting there. Yeah, I still don't get it.
Yeah.
So you would sell to a younger version of yourself to get into NFTs, basically.
No, I'm just like how to be rich. No, don't get into NFTs. Like I would say crypto if you're investing back in like 2010. And then sell like a year ago or whatever it was. Really high.
Bro. That's what's up.
That's what's up.
Listen.
Good advice.
I couldn't even think about better ending. There's like 3 or 4 just amazing points where we could just end the podcast, but no, we dragged to the end. And Dylan is just like, I have nothing to say anymore.
Yeah, what do you want? Just I dropped all the nuggets already.
Exactly, but like, listen, we have to finish with the wait. Oh,
I love this track.
Thanks, my man. Thank you so much for coming over, being here for 3 hours. 3 hours. We did it. Woo! Thank you, buddy.
Cheers.
Blah, blah, blah. Renars Podcast.